In this video, we're going to talk about rendering and animation in VRAY for SketchUp. We're also gonna have a look to more effects and additional parameters that you can use in rendering, especially if you're doing animated rendering. Now, in this video, we are going to create this different scenario here, which is an exterior again. So we started with a single object and created the HDRI and image-based lighting. Then we followed with an exterior, and then an interior design to test different types of scenarios and different type of lighting and render settings. So in this video, we're gonna go back into an exterior, but we can easily animate a scene here in SketchUp and make it become an interior if we want. So you can see here that I'm creating different scenes. Now this scenes panel is the classic panel that we find in SketchUp, so I can use this to create animation. So maybe I can get here and finish the animation inside my building. So I'm going to create another keyframe. So in SketchUp, basically when we create new scenes, by adjusting the view, we are creating some keyframes. Okay, and the animation is going to be everything that will be in between those keyframes, between a keyframe and another. So the more keyframes we're going to add, the longer will be the animation. And also we can decide here if we want to include or exclude some of these scenes into the animation. Now the rest of the animation in SketchUp, it's treated in the SketchUp video course if you are interested. Also, you can apply other types of animation if you're using some extension. So you could go in the extension warehouse and search for example here, animation. You can search for some tools, some additional tools, some plugins to create more complex animation. Okay, so just import a model also from the 3D warehouse or from any other website or source, and then we can start. Just create different views and create new scenes here. At least you need 2 of these to create the animation. Okay, and then we're gonna start to create some effects and get back later on to the animation part. So you can see in this rendering I have this kind of a fog effect or mist. So you can get these effects in the render settings. So you open up the VRAY asset editor and go here in the settings, and let's open up also this additional panel, and we can find the volumetric environment right here. This is where the fog and the mist is. So let's turn it off first and let's see how the scene is gonna look like without this effect. And there you go. Now this is kind of a night scene right now, but I think this is because of the settings in the lighting. So here in the sunlight you can see the light, it's really low, so I can increase this, and I'm changing also the color. So if you want to create some night scene, you can change the intensity and the color. Okay, now it's looking like sunset or dusk, something like that. And you can adjust the parameters here. If you apply the custom orientation, you can override the settings that you have in SketchUp. So you can see how quickly we can switch from a night scene or a day scene. And here you have the shadows panel. So these are the settings in SketchUp. If you want to use those, you just need to turn off this and run the render again. And another, there you go. So this is the SketchUp settings right here. We can see the shadows there. Now before we get back to the night scene, I want to show you how you can test here the lighting by using the global illumination right here. So we already talked about this in previous videos. So in this case, you should put this brute force and light cache, or also brute force and brute force if you're using the exterior setting. Okay, and you can then run the renderings and check out the difference. Also, another thing you should consider to use is in the camera here, in the effects, the vignetting effect. I think it's pretty nice, and it's gonna add here these darker corners, which is typical of the cameras. Well, this is too much, so you need to find the correct balance. Okay, and maybe you can also try with some vertical lens tilt, okay, to simulate again something that usually happens in cameras. Well, I definitely like the vignetting more than the tilt, but you can check also that. Now these are all effects simulating what happens in reality. Also, let's do a material override real quick. And also here in the exterior we can use ambient occlusion. And we already talked about ambient occlusion a couple of times because this is a really nice effect. And be careful there not to switch off the global illumination, but we want to switch off ambient occlusion and make a test here without. So you can see the difference with and without the ambient occlusion. And you can see here there are less details. Well, let's make another one, maybe this direction here. Okay. So basically the global illumination is gonna add a little bit of occlusion as well, like shadows and other details, but look at the difference with and without the ambient occlusion. So ambient occlusion is definitely gonna bring out a lot of details, so I definitely suggest you use it, but be careful here again, don't exaggerate with the amount or the radius as well. Just make something pretty mild. Okay, and now let's get to the environment effect. We can still use the override material, so we can concentrate on the environmental effect. So all we need to do here is get to the volumetric part and then activate the environment fog or the aerial perspective. The first one should be aerial perspective. So let's run a render. And this is what is going to happen here. So it's going to create this kind of really dense atmosphere or dense environment that is going to be really realistic sometimes, because it's also going to hide what's in the background. This is useful, especially in animation when you don't want too big spaces, because you need to optimize the timing, so you don't need really large spaces. So you can use a fog or a smoke, something like that, to hide a little bit what's around. This is also used in movies and TV series. So it's kind of a smoke or fog